Well, dead listeners, here we are again. This is another session of questions. So, without naming any names, I'm just going to read the questions that you guys sent in. I got 3 here today. The first one says, have you ever gotten a body? Okay, I never said these questions were grammatically perfect. Have you ever gotten a body that was super decomposed, like just bones? All right, I see what you're asking. Not a big fan of the word super. Just pointing that out. But to answer the question, yes. I actually did do a case for a young man that was 28 years old. We're going to call young man, since he was Bones, we're going to call him Brad. Bones Brad was 28 years old. Killed himself out in the woods somewhere north, out of town. He was not found for 3 months at least. And when you're out in the wild, animals tend to come and nature takes its course. So when Brad finally came to the medical examiners, he was nothing but bones, really. That's a skeleton, in case you're wondering. All we had was a small bag with a few femurs, ribs, half a spine, it just small stuff. So we're going to put bones here, bones there. It's going to look like a Jolly Roger. So that's pretty much all we found of Brad. And you might ask what we did with that. We took that into our care. He was identified somehow. I believe his belongings were there in the woods in his backpack. Otherwise, I don't know how the medical examiners would have found a way to identify him. But they contacted his poor father, who lived in the next state over. So I did the arrangement via internet, and father chose cremation. So we just cremated the bones. It was the only case that I've ever had like that. So it's interesting that you asked that. But yes, we have had a case where we did not receive a body. It was only some bones, and Brad was put to rest. Ashes were sent to father, and he placed him at a family plot cemetery there in their state. Not going to say that was a happy ending, unfortunately, but it happens. And I'm sure it happens a lot. I don't know how they would identify a bunch of bones if there hadn't been a bag nearby with his driver's license in it, but maybe that's something I can answer a different time. Question number 2. Isn't there a smell from the bodies where you work? Okay, let me draw this out, and it may be different in different places. Okay, I work in the funeral home. Essentially, it's just an administrative office. Okay? Only about, I want to say maybe 10 blocks away. 10 blocks away, in a permitted area, is the crematory. I'm going to put CRM for crematory, okay? The crematory is actually where all the bodies are held and cremated. That's a little chimney right there. So my office is mainly just where paperwork is done, where we sign the forms, take payment, sit down with catalogs, talk to the families about burial or cremation, and basically conduct just the business. So the answer to your question really is no. There is no funny smell here at all. It's an old house in the middle of town that was converted into an office, and we essentially are just like a real estate office or lawyer's office or banking or a bank. It's just a building. Over at the crematory, however, I have been over there. And the answer for that place is a big fat yes. There is a strange odor like none you've ever smelled before. It is a mix of farts, decomposition, extremities of, I don't know how to explain it, chemicals, There is the smell of chemicals because when you are dealing with a lot of biohazard, uh, you're cleaning up a lot of that with some harsh chemicals, and there will be a strange smell. I forgot to put no right here. Funeral home, no. Crematory, yes. And some businesses, other funeral homes or crematories or cemeteries may have a different answer. Some of them may be in the same place. Our crematory, where I work out of, actually does have another funeral home, which is kind of like our partner, and the building's right next door. This is also a funeral home over here. We work hand in hand. But their office doesn't quite smell that bad. The interesting thing is that office is more often used for the viewings. When the families want to see their loved ones, we generally tell them to go over here because that way the body only has to be moved into the next building and not all the way across town. So, there's your answer. No, my office smells fine. My office is not haunted. My office does not contain dead bodies. It's just a house turned into an office. Crematory? I don't know. I've walked through that place. I just would say I would not eat lunch there. That's all. Question number 3. All right. Are people ever cremated together if they asked to be? I wrote this down, and I read it and wrote it, and I read it again. And to be honest, I'm not sure how to answer this. So here's my answer is really, I don't know. I have never had a case where somebody wanted to be cremated together because I've never had two people who knew each other die at the same time. So we're going to have a tiny dead person here. And if that tiny dead person is married to somebody, well, first of all, when we put bodies into a cremation machine, okay, they are not just laid in there. The door is right here. In order to get the whole body to go into the machine, they have to be placed inside what's called a casket. All right? I call it a body box because it's really a box that the body goes in. We can't really fit 2 caskets into one machine because there's not enough space on each side. And we can't really fit 2 people in each casket. And the body box, the casket is kind of required because otherwise you would be laying their shoulders right here, trying to curl their knees up and rolling them in. That's not the way to do it. You have to lay them in the box, put the box on the edge of the door, and slide the whole thing in. Which begs the question, first of all, maybe if a husband and a wife died together in a car accident and the children wanted them cremated together, perhaps we can adjust it to one of the caskets made for a large-sized person and then lay them together. That's a possibility. But it would have to be, absolutely have to be something that the family requests. Like, we would discourage it. I would discourage it and ask them if we could just cremate them individually and then combine the ashes afterwards. We could do that. But cremating both bodies at the same time, never heard of it. Never done it. I haven't had anybody ask. Mostly because when somebody dies, no 2 people that I've ever handled a case for died at the same time. I have had a case where a husband died and his wife allowed his 2 children to make the arrangements, and then she died a week and a half later. His children said of a broken heart. Very sad. But by that time, he was already cremated. So there's my answer for that one. 2 bodies at the same time? No. Part of the contracts that I have people sign promises the family that every individual is cremated individually. We legally cannot cremate somebody with another person. Now, there is the question I've had in the past, and I'll just answer this now since you're wondering, or if you are. The slab that the person is laid on, when they're inside of the casket, the slab underneath here is made of clay, like stone. It's like a kiln, really. And so when everything crumbles down to dust, the dust is swept off of the platform. And so this will become a pile of dust right here, right? We have, yes, brooms, and we try to sweep all the ashes out of the oven or the cremation machine. And some of the finer dusts will stay ingrained in the surface of the clay. Just like if you were to have a fireplace on a stone slab and you try to clean it off the surface of the stone, you're not going to get every single thing. It's never a perfect process, but it can be done as well as we can. And we try to, our hardest, because we don't want a bunch of somebody else's cremated remains getting mixed in with your grandma's. But are there a few specks of ashes that may end up in your grandma's ashes? Answer is yes. It's not a perfect process. We cannot scrub it with soap and water. So just understand it's as best as we can do. Anyways, thanks you guys for asking. Please send me an email. Ask more questions. I'll do my best to find out the answers and answer your questions. And like I always tell you guys, live your life to the fullest.